Okay, well, let us get started. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our roundtable discussion today. I'm Anna Johnson, County Council Member for District 8. And I'd like to start off with our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you all will join me. I have my flag every time. Y'all see it right here. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you for joining me. All right. Today's topic we are going to have on manufactured homes and flooding. And we have someone from our Building Services Department, Anna, just like me, Anna Himmelblatt. So she's going to talk to us throughout this program. But before we get started with her, I just want to share a little interest I have in this, in the mobile homes in Charleston County District 8. I understand that we have 2,893 mobile homes. And some date back as far as 1957, a long time. My concern is about homes that have been out there a long time that may need repairs, come in contact with, the damages from storms, and how can we help people that have those kinds of homes and situations. So that's why I've asked for someone to come and talk to us about the mobile homes. So Anna, I am happy to have you here today with us. And I'm going to just open it up. I'll give it to you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm very happy to be here today as well. I'm going to try and share my screen so that we can look at some slides. You'll have to let me know if
I can see it.
Oh. Let's see here. Okay, we'll run through these. See if I can make it bigger. There we go. Okay, so my name is Anna Kimmelblatt. I'm one of the floodplain management coordinators in the Building Inspection Services Department at Charleston County. Today we'll talk a little bit about manufactured homes in the special flood hazard area. So we're going to cover current rules and regulations, some challenges that are unique to manufactured homeowners, the permitting requirements, and then also a couple of retrofitting options for existing manufactured homes in the special flood hazard area. So first, I just want to draw your attention to a recent study that just was published in February of this year by Headwater Economics. It was a really interesting analysis that demonstrated that 1 out of 7 manufactured homes are at high risk to flooding compared to 1 in 10 for all other housing types. So it's really important as a manufactured homeowner to know your flood risk. And I really want to encourage everyone to call us at the Floodplain Management Division if you have any questions about your flood zone or past flooding events in your area. We are always happy to help answer any of those questions and provide you with information. So this study divided up the coast into transects and included part of Charleston County in that study. It essentially divided up these transects in terms of manufactured home density and flood risk. They created an interactive map where you can see the density of manufactured housing up and down the coast. And so this screen here, this picture is a screen grab from that interactive map. The light blue, more than 1 in 20 housing units is a manufactured home. And in the dark blue areas, more than 1 in 4 housing units is a manufactured home. So you can see that in this portion of Charleston County, there's a fairly high density of manufactured housing, as well as a high flood risk, because this is a coastal area. So it is a bit of a problem that we see here in Charleston County, manufactured homes being exposed to a higher flood risk. The National Flood Insurance Program, which is funded through FEMA, has been regulating manufactured housing since 1976. But unfortunately, some of those regulations proved to be insufficient in 1992 during Hurricane Andrew, which destroyed 97% of the manufactured homes in Dade County, Florida. And this was a combination of both wind and flood damage. And they found that some of the regulations that were lacking were elevation requirements, or requiring reinforced piers as foundations, as well as a lack of a requirement for anchoring. There was also a problem with site-built additions causing damage to the manufactured homes during those storm events. So after Hurricane Andrew, the National Flood Insurance Program did some self-reflection and revised a lot of those regulations and came out with a new set of standards in 1994 that manufactured housing needs to adhere to now. And those were really designed so that manufactured housing would better resist those wind and flood hazards. So I just want to show you a couple of photos here from Hurricane Andrew. The top photo is a foundation that buckled because it was inadequately anchored and exposed to moving floodwaters. And that bottom photo was an addition that was attached to the original home, but the addition was improperly installed and damaged during the storm, and subsequently caused damage to the original home itself. So then after 1994, all homes that were constructed after that, they did seem to fare better during those storm events. These new regulations were proved to be fairly effective in 1998 during Hurricane George, which was sort of the next big storm to hit that area. And the manufactured homes did fare better. So it sort of proves that these more stringent construction standards are one way that we can increase the resiliency of structures in the floodplain. And that's a big goal for us here at Charleston County in the Building Inspection Services Department. We want to build smart and break the cycle of flood damage. We want to increase the resiliency of all structures that we're building in the floodplain. Charleston County, as we know, is a high-risk area with frequent storms. And so resiliency is important to us, and we always want to be over-prepared. So before we start talking about the current rules and regulations, I want to just quickly touch on the permitting requirements and the process for placing a mobile home in the flood zone. The first step is actually to obtain a zoning permit. A lot of people don't always know that they need a zoning permit before they come over to building. The second step is that every mobile home that's going in the flood zone must have an engineer designed foundation. And our plan review team needs to see that before we issue a building permit. So you'll submit those plans to us showing your engineer designed permanent foundation. Plan review will take a look and approve it. And then you can move forward in getting the building permit. There's a $100 fee associated with that. We will also require a FEMA elevation certificate, and we will touch more on that in the next slide. So the current regulations surrounding manufactured homes according to the Charleston County Flood Ordinance. Manufactured homes must meet the same standards as stick-built construction. So these standards from the Charleston County Flood Ordinance apply to all new construction as well as substantial improvements. So substantial improvements are when you are maybe making some renovations or alterations to your home, and the total cost of those exceeds 49% of the market value of your home. In that case, if they are to exceed 49%, then the entire structure will need to be brought up to current code according to the Charleston County Flood Ordinance. So I just want to run through these regulations. These are sort of the big ones that we'll touch on today. The first is that all manufactured homes must be adequately anchored to prevent flotation, collapse, or lateral movement. That's especially important. We don't want any homes coming off of their foundations and damaging another neighboring structure. All manufactured houses must be elevated to or above the design flood elevation. The design flood elevation is the base flood elevation plus 2 feet of freeboard. So I'll elaborate on that a bit. The base flood elevation is the height at which water is expected to rise during the 1 in 100 year chance flood. So let's say you have a flood zone of AE7. 7 would be your base flood elevation, which means that water is expected to rise to 7 feet above mean sea level during that 1 in 100 year chance storm. We take that 7 feet and we require that you add another 2 to it. And that is the height at which your lowest first floor must be. So the bottom of the manufactured home, the floor that you're walking on, must be at design flood elevation, which, just to reiterate, is that base flood plus 2 feet. We will ask you, before you can get your final building inspection and move in, to submit a FEMA elevation certificate to us. And the elevation certificate essentially formally states the height of your first floor. And so during the plan review process, when you're submitting those engineered foundation designs, you will work with plan review to make sure you identify your flood zone and to make sure that that foundation is going to be high enough to get your first floor to the design flood elevation. That's all information that the plan review team would help you with. And so you'll need to hire a licensed land surveyor in order to complete that elevation certificate form. You'll submit that to us for review. Myself or someone else will take a look at it, say, check, this is high enough, send it back to you and say it's approved, and then you'll be able to proceed with your final building inspection and move in. The last 2 regulations on this slide essentially deal with applicability. So even if only part of the structure is in the special flood hazard area, the entire structure must meet the Charleston County Flood Ordinance standards. And then we often have situations where a structure is overlapping into 2 flood zones. And so per our ordinance, if you're touching 2 flood zones, the flood zone that is more hazardous or the higher risk flood zone is the standard to which you'll be held for construction. We're in the business of keeping people safe, so that's why we do that. Continuing on with our current regulations, another good one to be aware of is that anything below the base flood elevation must be constructed with class 4 or 5 materials. There's a list of materials that are flood damage resistant, and those are the class 4 and 5 materials. And that list can be found in FEMA Technical Bulletin 2. It is titled Flood Resistant Materials Requirements for buildings located in the special flood hazard area. And that's where that list will be. And then the other really important regulation to take away from this is that all the electrical and mechanical equipment that services the home, so any ventilation, plumbing, HVAC, associated ductwork, all of that also needs to be elevated again to that design flood elevation. There's nothing worse than having to repeatedly replace your HVAC over and over again if you're in an area of repetitive flooding. That's also why you commonly see HVACs elevated up on platforms these days. So this just is this section from our flood ordinance specific to manufactured homes, and it just is reiterating all manufactured homes must be elevated on a permanent foundation so that the lowest floor is at or above that design flood elevation, which again is the BFE, the base flood elevation, plus our 2-foot freeboard requirement. I want to talk a little bit about additions and accessory structures. Those are things like carports, decks, porches, awnings. These are often installed after the manufactured home has been placed. They're important to talk about because most damage to manufactured homes during storms or hurricanes comes from these attachments and accessory structures that are improperly installed or maybe installed without permits. It's really important to think about these things. If you're ever unsure if you need a permit, call and ask. Our permit techs are happy to talk about your project and tell you whether or not a permit would be required. These can be dangerous in that attachments that impose loads or put weight on the manufactured home or its foundation can compromise the structural integrity, especially during a storm when there's wind and floodwaters involved. So it's important to install them, the way that the manufacturer prescribes, and to always get a permit. The last regulation that I want to touch on is our regulations in V and coastal A zones. It is important to note that new or replacement manufactured homes can no longer be placed in V or coastal A areas. The V flood zones and the coastal A flood zones are very high risk areas that are subject to intense winds and wave heights greater than 3 feet. And these areas are not suitable for manufactured housing. So existing manufactured homes can remain in the V and coastal A areas, but no new or replacement manufactured housing can go into these areas. This is a higher regulatory standard that Charleston County enforces to increase our coastal resiliency and decrease the instances of severe flood damage. Doing this helps us decrease the amount of people and property that are at risk to flood damage. A couple challenges that are unique to manufactured home owners. Just this deals with post-incident, so post-storm. Approximately 40% of manufactured homeowners across the US own their home, but rent the land on which it is placed. And that can be a bit of a murky legal area in regards to tenants' rights after a storm. And then there's a couple unique barriers that exist in accessing federal or state assistance. And that's that federal disaster recovery payments are based on estimated cost of repair or replacement, but are capped by home appraisal values. And sometimes repair costs can exceed the value of the manufactured home, which causes aid to fall short. And then the remainder of those repair costs would have to be paid by the homeowner. So it's just something to be aware of. And the last thing to be aware of is that manufactured home parks are typically private businesses. And so they don't always qualify for FEMA disaster assistance, but there is a small business assistance grant that is possible to apply for that they would qualify for. So with hurricane season approaching, it's always just good to be aware of some of the challenges that might come up in the future. And the last thing that I want to touch on today are the two main mitigation options for existing manufactured homes in the special flood hazard area. So those are relocation and elevation. Relocation is essentially transferring the home to a new location. And there's a checklist of questions that you want to ask yourself before you explore that option. The first being, is it cost effective? The second, is the home in good enough condition to be transported? And you also want to think about how easy it is to disconnect your utilities and mechanical equipment that's servicing the home prior to transportation. And then lastly, is there a suitable new site? It's really important that if you're considering relocation, the new site, we want it to be of lower flood risk, or ideally outside of the special flood hazard area. That would probably make relocation the most cost effective. And then the second mitigation option is for older homes, older manufactured homes in the flood hazard area that may not be meeting the current freeboard standards. So their lowest floor might be below base flood elevation, which of course is not good, especially in areas of repeated flooding. And same thing, you want to think about, is it cost effective and is the home in good enough condition to be elevated? Because that can be a bit of a structural endeavor, but certainly more feasible with manufactured homes than with single family residences. So mitigation is something that we are definitely available to talk about and help with and advise on. These mitigation measures can result in vastly discounted insurance premiums for manufactured homeowners. So if you are a manufactured homeowner with, flooding in the area, it's definitely something to consider. But that is all I have today. I'm happy to take questions, talk about anything else, and I appreciate your time.
All right, so thank you very much. I want to ask a question about what is the age limit for being able to transport a mobile home? I don't think I saw that.
The age limit,
Yes.
I'm
Or
not,
how old, you
I'm
know?
not sure that there is one. I think it would mostly depend on the condition of the structure.
Oh, really?
If it was, yes, if it was structurally sound, then I would imagine that there is no age limit. Wherever you relocate it to, it has to, of course, meet the current standards. So you might need to relocate it onto a raised foundation to meet freeboard standards.
Ms. Johnson, if it's structurally sound and everything is okay, I'm just repeating what Anna said. There is no limitation. It can be 100 years old as long as it's structurally sound.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. I thought I heard something about an age. Okay. And you said that you think most of the homes are on private, like trailer parks, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
So those regulations would have to have been met when the trailer park owner should know what all those regulations are when you bring the trailer in.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, do we have anyone that have
Ms. Johnson,
question?
let me elaborate on the age. We're talking about, HUD back in 1974. If it's older than 74, it doesn't meet the wind speed for our area. That's why. I talked to Walt about this issue, and we heard it about that. See, HUD, the federal government had just in 1974 that, if it doesn't meet the seismic and the wind for our area, it cannot bring it from other county to our county. And that's the issue. I think.
Okay.
That's what you're referring to.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, Ms. Johnson.
All right. So do we have any of our participants that have a question?
Yes, Anna, I have one. What about if you're not considered in a flood zone? Do you have to meet the same requirements as those people in a flood zone if you're purchasing a manufactured home?
No, ma'am. These regulations are unique to those in the special flood hazard area. So you would not have the same elevation requirement.
So where would you find the requirements for a home not in the flood zone?
If you want to put your contact information in the chat box, we can send you those via email if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
You still have to pay, you still have to obtain a zoning permit, you still have to pay the fee, the processing fee application, which is $100. We still have to do our final inspection. You don't have to provide us with the engineering drawing. You don't have to provide us with the flood elevation certificate. It's just a typical mobile home regulated by the state, but we still have to go through our county regulation and ordinance, zoning permit, building permit, $100 fee, inspection, and you get your final.
Oh, okay.
Okay, is that it? All right. So, but basically though, if somebody has a piece of land and they're thinking about wanting to put a mobile home on it, then they really need to find out what the flood information is for that particular piece of land before they go and purchase the home.
Yes, definitely. And we are available to help with that. We will absolutely look up a flood zone for you. No question is too small. We're happy to help.
And of course, zoning, if the zoning allow them to put a mobile home in that piece of property, or if there's zoning regulation and policy.
Well, that's very important too, because I had people to I think 2 people contacted me. They went and purchased a home from someone, a mobile home, before they checked the zoning of the property where they wanted to take the a mobile home to, and was not able to do that because they didn't check on the zoning first. Mhm. Okay.
Because we
That's a very-
cannot proceed with the building permit if there is no zoning approval.
Right, okay. Do we have anyone else that want to ask a question or make any comments? Mhm.
Ms. Johnson, I see a question here from Fred Palm. He says, if the module can be moved, that means it has enough integrity that it can be raised. Is that an option?
Mm.
Elevation is an option, yes. It's really probably specific to the situation, whether or not relocation or elevation is better. Sometimes if you're relocating, you'll often elevate too. So it's unique to the homeowner and their situation.
But I guess mainly if somebody's really thinking about bringing a mobile home in to an area, they really need to contact the building department first and to make sure that everything is,
Well, the building and the zoning,
and zoning, yes.
that's the major, then we have no issue. If it's allowed, allowed.
Mhm. Okay. I think I like you explaining why these codes are changing. So as storms come up, then FEMA is looking to see what kind of impact the storm had on these buildings, and that's determining whether they should make changes in the regulations.
Yes, FEMA does a lot of post-disaster assessment.
Okay. All right, that's quite interesting.
We have another question from Mr. Palm. It says the 100-year standard is more frequent than 100 years. Can the module go higher than +2 feet?
Yes, you can certainly elevate with more than 2 feet of freeboard. You can elevate so that you could drive under it theoretically.
Matter of fact, we always welcome if you are going beyond what's the minimum, what's the county and FEMA require. And that will help you in the insurance policy, on the reduction of the policy, the rate, and that will help you on the flood insurance premium. Instead of paying 200, hypothetical, I'm just saying, instead of paying 200, you might pay $100, just hypothetical. The higher you go, not only it's safe from flooding, and the rate of the premium decreased.
Oh, that's a good savings there in the insurance.
Mhm.
Do that. Mhm. Okay. Do we have anybody else with any other questions? Now, I guess for the future, I wanted to get some kind of assessment as to what kind of repairs might be needed for trailers of a certain age. Just like houses, when you just build a new house, you know that the roof is good for 30 years or the plumbing is good for a certain amount of years. Is there any hard and fast rule about mobile homes? Are they good for 30 years too?
Well, it depends. FEMA saying this is good. However, if it's existing mobile home, it's in our county and things happen, need repair, all what they need is just a building permit for repair. That's typical, electrical or mechanical or plumbing, just a regular repair permit will issue. But if the mobile home is so age, the age of it is beyond 74, before 74, it will not meet the requirement of our area, our county, and they want to move it from some other county or from some other state, then that's the problem here. There, we cannot allow that because structurally it's weak. It cannot handle the wind and the lateral forces for this area.
Well, let me see if I understand this. You're saying if the mobile home is, was bought before 74, and a person want to do some kind of electrical work there, would they be able to get a permit to do that, or?
Yeah, is the mobile home is here existing? It's
Yeah,
the
in
process?
Charleston County, in Charleston.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. We cannot, yes. But if they want to bring the mobile home from some other state,
County.
because we have to deal with what we have and what's existing.
I
But
see.
we cannot bring something is non-compliance to our area and just approve it. And that's the issue about it. But if
Okay.
they have an issue, if we have a mobile home here and existing and there is an electrical issue or whatever, they can come and obtain a repair permit. And that's all.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any other questions about that? About this topic we have today?
Okay. We have another question here from Fred Palm. He says, many of the barrier island residents are sited on land that floods. Are there any programs intended to prevent damage by raising the existing modules? What about the recent federal infrastructure program?
Well, Anna, go ahead.
Well, there are funds available. We are actually working on some elevation grants now in our department. It would be up to the homeowner to reach out and talk to us if they were interested in looking for assistance.
Yeah, but that's only for existing homes that's below flood, that the elevation grants.
Mhm.
So first they have to look at it. Well, here I see it. Are there standards for funding? Not with our department. That's directly with FEMA. If the FEMA fund it, we can apply grant on the citizens' behalf. However, we cannot guarantee the approval.
So an area like Stall Green, for instance,
Okay.
they have some trailers out there and they're not elevated properly. You all are looking at getting some kind of FEMA grant that might could address something like that they could apply for.
It's tricky. It's tricky out there because a lot of that is V and coastal A.
Uh-huh, okay, that's right, that's what I'm asking.
That's
So
right.
So if it's in that area,
it's tough because we wouldn't be able to replace or put any new manufactured housing in that area.
Because of B zone, velocity zone, and coastal A, it's not even allowed to have any mobile home there.
Okay. But if the mobile home is there now, but it's just not, it was installed before 74 and it's not at the proper level it should be at. I'm just wondering if there is any help to help somebody, like a senior citizen who needs to do that, for instance.
Well, if it's there now, it's in existence, that's a very firm condition. So we cannot move them. We cannot let them, So if there is any program, I have another floodplain coordinator, Luz. I will have her, I will ask her to look at that and see if there is any grant can help the citizen of that area, and we'll move forward from that. We will be in contact with the state representative, DNR, and FEMA. And if there is anything, Ms. Johnson, you'll be the first one to know.
Okay. All right, well, I think those are all the questions that I have. And we don't have any more in the chat box?
It looks like Mr. Palm is asking how much is available for raising.
Well, raising the elevation for that, we deal with the repetitive loss structure now. I don't want to mix the two issues, but that's an existing home, not a mobile home. So Luz applied for that grant with FEMA. It's about $205,000 for each home. 75% FEMA will provide, and 25% that's from the owner. However, this is still in process. We still don't have the answer of approval or not. They said, yes, it's approved the application, but the final, we don't know yet. As soon as we get the word from FEMA that's yes, it's approved, that's for different area. I just want to give you an example about this for Boone Hall and some other area, because that's where is the flood. You know, we have repetitive loss damage there several times. Again, we will tackle this issue on the ground for specific area and for specifically for mobile homes, and we'll see the answer from FEMA if there is any grant associated with this type of program.
Mhm. Well, you let me know if
Oh
you.
yeah, Ms. Johnson, you are the first one who's going to be known, because if we get that grant, the one we're working on now is going to go through the council, and you're going to be the
Okay.
best one to know about it.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. All right. Well, I certainly want to thank you both for coming on and for sharing your information today with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
And our participants, I certainly want to thank all of you. Hopefully everybody has had their last word, their questions answered, and until the next time.
And our next time is April 27th.
Okay, April 27th. And I want to thank Ms. Salisbury for stepping in to help us today with the roundtable discussion.
Yes, ma'am,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
See you next time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson.
All right, bye-bye.
Have a nice one. Bye-bye.